Welcome to another Minecraft tutorial. In the last 2 seasons of Hedgehog Hollow, I had a storage room like this. Others asked how I made this and want to know if they can make one for themselves. This is not complicated, though it is a little bit resource intensive because there are a lot of hoppers and chests. If I fly around here, you can see that it is really just a one slice pattern repeated over and over again. It isn't very large, it isn't very wide, and it's easy to do if you do it one step at a time. There are many videos using something very similar to this. The reason I am putting this here is because I have an overflow system that I created I believe is a little unique. Usage is very easy. Just put everything into an input chest or barrel, and then it's going to automatically get sorted into the proper chest. I have lights added onto this, so when things go into a chest, you'll see a light turn on to let you know this stack is being filled up with a new item that you just sorted. That's useful if you just want to know how long it's taking for everything to get in and when it's safe to leave without unloading the chunk and possibly breaking something. However, this is very safe when it comes to unloading a chunk. Nothing will really break very badly. And as expected, once everything is in, you can head over to your chest and you can see that it's all sorted into the proper storage location. And I want to point out that you don't have to only put things in here that are auto sorted. Often if I have a block that I only have a few of, I will manually put those into the chests that go along with something similar. I'm going to start by building the wall of chests. I'm using this gray block to indicate any block. You can build this with anything, cobblestone, deep slate, it doesn't matter. I'm putting these in between my chests because my design requires 3 wide for a 3 tall stack of chests. Then I can put all the chests in between these columns. The advantage of the glass here is as I build, you'll be able to see through it and it'll help you see what's going on in the background. And that's the front wall done. I do this in sections of 3. Jumping around to the back, you're going to put 3 hoppers going into the chest just like this on each of the stacks. You're going to see that I reverse this on a few stacks once we get the whole thing going, but right now you put those 3 and then another chest right back here. Then you need a couple hoppers on top for each stack, so I'll just put something down to hop up here, and then you're going to level it out. Put one down, straight down, put another one straight down, another one straight down until you get the entire line flat. And this is what it looks like when it's done. It's the same pattern repeated, but notice I have 1, 2, 3 lines going into each of the 3 stacks that are going to feed top, middle, bottom. For this next part, I'm going to use some temporary blocks just to help myself get the items placed down. I put an entire row across the back of these hoppers. Now I need to hop up there, so I just throw a couple temporary blocks down and then jump up. On top of this temporary stack, I'm going to put barrels. You can use chests, but you need to alternate between regular and trap chests. I use barrels, so I have to alternate. Now I need to put a hopper going into each barrel. And again, run all the way across, putting hoppers down into each one of the barrels. Then put a barrel on top of each of the hoppers that you just placed. This is going to be the overflow handling that is going to take care of it when you fill up a chest and more items come in. Now you're going to go 2 hoppers back. The second one's kind of hard, but they're feeding, one feeds into one feeds into the barrel, and then you fill it up all the way across. And this is the beginning of the entire sorting system. We're done with this temporary stack. Get rid of it and get rid of all the temporary blocks that I used just to get the barrels in place. I mentioned before that these barrels are for overflow. If your chest completely fills up and backs up, it's going to go into these barrels, and I can run a line of hoppers to take it down into some sort of a handling system below, even if it's just chuck it into a bunch of lava. And you can do multiple ones going down by sending them off to the side like this. You can also make extra lines coming down wherever you need to handle the overflow. I usually have 1 line for smelting, 1 line for trash, and 1 line as fuel for the smelting. You can set it up however you like. Now just to show how this overflow works, let me fly to the side just a second. Items are coming in on the top. They're going into a barrel. They'll get pulled down and shoved into this barrel on the side to go down to overflow, unless there is room to put it into one of these chests out front. Then it will go into the chest in the front instead of going into the overflow. Now we can build the actual sorter. First, we need target blocks. Put a row of target blocks here, and they have to be target blocks, otherwise the redstone will not go the way it needs to go. Then put a redstone torch on the inside of each target block. Do this immediately. Many times I forget to put these little red torches in, and as you get further along, it gets very difficult to put them in, and none of your stock goes where you need it to go. Now we need a row of blocks. I'm using the gray glass to mean any block. It doesn't matter what kind of block you put here. When I'm done with this, there is a lag issue that I try to take care of. These red torches blink on and off and change the lighting, which can cause a lot of lag. By putting torches right here, I keep it lit up really well and it doesn't lag so much as things get sorted. So now we need to hop up here and we need to put down some redstone, a row just running all the way along the glass, which would be any block in your design. Then another row of any block running along the back. And by any block, you can use glass. I use glass here so I can see through it. I think it looks better being able to see through the entire system. And finally, another row of redstone dust all the way along the top here. And finally, this next row has to be glass. It can be an upper slab. I have trouble with upper slabs, so I make sure it's always glass for this row. And once I lay the entire row, I'm going to put redstone dust along the top of it again. Once again, one more block of any block going along. On top of this row, you're going to put comparators pointing into the redstone dust all the way along. And then it's a little tricky. You need to crouch and put a hopper going into the back of each comparator. You can do it, there's enough pixels there, it just takes a little practice. And now for a side view so you can see it all put together. Each of the sorter items is one slice wide, repeated over and over again, and the chest out front is a set of 3, a set of 3, a set of 3 with a repeated pattern going over and over. For this next part, you need an item that is not in the game, so you cannot put it in your system. I renamed something. Open up an anvil, just change the name of a whole bunch of items. I have 64 fleshes here that I'm changing to null. Now null is unique. It is not an item I would ever put into my sorter, so I can use it to train my sorter so that it knows exactly what to do with each slice. The way you do it is you put one of these filler items in the last 4 slots of each hopper. You go all the way along and do this for every single hopper. It takes time, but it needs to be done. Now, if you want to know why we're doing this, it is because we're turning these hoppers into 1 item slot hoppers. That way it can only accept one type of item because it only has 1 slot that works. The rest of the slots are filled with a garbage item that would never be used. And finally, we're all done. We can go back to the beginning and start setting up the sorting system. Here I have a whole bunch of blocks that I want to sort. What you do is you go in, you open it up, and you stick the items in the first slot. Each one of these is going to sort whichever item I put into the first slot, and that is what's going to go in and fill up the chest. In case it is not obvious, this is not a multi-item sorter. This sorts 1 item into 1 chest all the way down. I put 64 items into each of these hoppers, but if you'll notice, they're all at 41 now. You will have 41 of the items sitting up there. The other 21 items will be down here inside the chest. If there is lag, there may be 20 because sometimes one gets stuck in the system, but it'll come through next time you sort items. With the sorters set up, we need to get the items to run across the top of these hoppers. I'm going to use water. I need ice to get things to move quickly. I'm using blue ice. Don't use regular ice because it can melt, but packed ice will be okay. Start with a little bit of a line. It doesn't really matter how long this is, and then turn. You really want to turn in this to get things lined up. And I'm going to go ahead and put one on the end. In a full system, this would connect to another whole set of 3x3 items, but I'm going to block it off. I can use any block here. Again, I'm using the gray glass to indicate any block. And really all I'm doing is making a water trough to run along the top of these hoppers so that it can catch the items as they flow by. I used to use a run of hoppers up here, but hoppers get broken sometimes when chunks unload and items don't get sorted, so I use water now. That is one whole side done. I need to do the other side so the water doesn't flow onto all my sorter and break all of my redstone. That is done. Now I need to go back and fill it with water. But first I want to control the flow of the water using signs. This is important placement. Put one before your run, then count in 1, 2, 3, 4, place another one. Then go to the end and place one directly after your hoppers. With those in place, we can get the water feed coming in, and this is very custom. You can do this however you want. You just need to have the bubble water column bringing items up right here at the beginning before the bend. I have a little platform here that's directly below where I want to send my items to. So I'm going to make a column that I can fill up with water to send them up. It needs to line up, but it doesn't have to be perfect because remember, this is a custom input right here. I can add more of this blue ice and then set it further back, further off to the side, whatever I really need. But I do have to close it up so the water doesn't flow everywhere. Oops, that has to be blue ice. Now at the top you want to cap it off, otherwise your items are going to start flying out and going everywhere. The key to the bubble elevator is a piece of soul sand that we need to put in the bottom of the water column right here. Water blocks on top of soul sand have bubbles that make things float up quickly. Now I just need to fill this entire column up with water to the very top. Everyone has a different way to do this. I'm just going to jump in and fill it up with water one block at a time until I get it all the way up to the top. The bubbles make me float, so it's not that hard to keep on working at it until I get it all the way up. If you miss a block, your items will get stuck in this elevator. That's why it has to be full of solid water blocks. When you get to the top, you want to go one extra so that it overflows onto your ice. The signs stop the water flow, so after each sign, place another water source and you'll see it flow along. And before I forget, I need to cap the top back off so the items don't shoot out at high speed and go everywhere. Back at the bottom, I need to get items to go into the bubble elevator. I'm going to use a dropper for this. It's going to go into a stream of water, which is going to push things along. Again, I use ice on the flooring just to make things move faster. Ignore the backflow for a moment. Just make sure there's one water source block in front of the dropper. Then you can put a sign here to stop the backflow from coming back. Now the dropper can shoot items out. They will go along and go into the bubble column, up and into the sorter. I'm going to add a little bit of redstone here that detects if there is an item or more than one item inside the dropper and then shoots them out into the water stream. I just need a couple more blocks here on the back. Then what I need is a target block sitting next to the dropper. This has to be a target block for this to work. And then a comparator in order to see if there are items inside of the dropper. That feeds into a repeater, and I use another repeater here in case it gets completely full, and then some redstone, and it's all done. So I can put just about anything inside this dropper now. It's going to detect there's something inside the dropper and shoot it right out and goes up the water stream. But we don't want to be filling this thing up manually, so we need to make sure it has some sort of an input, such as putting a couple hoppers on top of it and then putting a barrel on top of that. So when I put items in the barrel, they go down into the dropper and the dropper shoots them into the water stream so they can be sorted, just like this. You can see that they're all going up the bubble elevator, up into that top stream, and flowing all the way across the top of all of the hoppers for my sorting system. Here I have some cobblestone so we can see it work. I drop in 64 cobblestone and it's going to go up, and we're going to see that that goes into the first hopper, because remember, the first slot in that first hopper is cobblestone, so all of it gets sucked down and gets sorted down into the chest in front. If you see the items jumping out at the bottom, just head down there and put some more glass or whatever you're using as your building block to cover it up so that it doesn't start shooting out, and that'll keep it inside the little tunnel. Now let's sort an item that'll go further along the line. That way we can see it skip over some of the hoppers until it finds the hopper it's supposed to go into. It looks like I'm not sorting for this item. It goes all the way to the end. Notice this water stream is set up so that they bounce over the hole in the water and keep flowing along. That's why you have to get your signs set just right. And at the end you'll normally have something to catch all of the stuff that doesn't get sorted. But as a sorting system, this is now complete. I have everything in front in order to store things. I have all the stuff in the back to sort them. And I have a column in order to put things in with a little dropper to shoot stuff into my water column. And I have some place to put stuff in order to send it so that it can be auto sorted into all of the chests along this wall. The last thing I like to do is put a sign on front of each chest with some item in it to indicate what that chest holds. I repeat that for all the chests, and then I end up with a very nice sorting system all ready to store all of my bulk items. And this is what it looks like when it's done. Now, if you've seen any of my lessons on Minecraft, you know that I don't like to just leave it here. I want to go in detail and show you exactly how everything is working. So if you want to customize this and make changes, maybe you figure out how to fix a problem I had, you can do it yourself because you'll understand how it works, not just what block to put next to what other block. This is a graph of the sorter. You can see the input hopper on top with 4 junk items sitting on the 4 right slots. It feeds into a comparator that only has a signal of 1 right now because there's only 4 items in the hopper. Below the input hopper is another hopper that is locked by the redstone torch directly below it. Because it is locked, it is not pulling anything out of the hopper above it. Now I have added 42 items into the input's first slot. Notice that the redstone signal now has a strength of 2. That is not enough to light up the entire redstone line and give a signal into that target block, which would turn off the red torch. Therefore, the second hopper is still locked and not pulling any of those 42 items. Here, an item is going to go over the input hopper. The input hopper will not pull it down because if you notice it's green and the input hopper has some sort of blue item in there, so it's not going to pull it down. The input hopper will only pull down items that are the same as the 42 items in the first slot. So that item moves along down the line and may be picked up by another hopper. Here is an item that matches the item in the first slot of the input hopper. This item gets pulled into the first slot of the input hopper, bringing the count of items there up to 43. With 43 items plus those extra 4 junk items, the signal strength is now 3. That is enough to light up all 3 redstone dust items, which is going to put a signal into the target block, which turns off that redstone torch. That unlocks the hopper directly below the input item. Because it's unlocked, it's going to pull that input item down, just 1 item. 2 things happen here at the same time. First, there's only 42 items in the input hopper. That means the signal strength is now 2, so it's not going to reach the target block. The redstone torch turns back on and locks the hopper below the input, but not before it has a chance to push that 1 item over into the next hopper. That hopper pushes the item into the barrel at the top. The hopper below that barrel pulls the item down. This is really where I added something special. Assume that that storage barrel is completely full. Nothing more can go into it. The hopper that's feeding into it will fill up, then nothing more can go into it either. If that is the case, instead of backing up all the way into the sorter at the very top and breaking everything, it's going to push items off to that left into the overflow barrel. Then it's going to be sucked down and sent into overflow, which could be just about anything. You could chuck things into lava to get rid of them. You could put them into some special high storage area. You could also smelt them or use them as fuel for smelting. And many items can be turned into bone meal. But let's assume that it's not backed up. It's going to get pulled down into the next hopper in the line. And that hopper is going to push it into your chest, the one that you step up to and pull items out of. And that is how the entire sorting system works. Now let's assume that your chest is completely full. It has backed up into the hopper, which is now completely full, and a new item comes in. You can see that item cannot go into your actual chest or your storage because everything is full. So instead what it does is it goes into the overflow barrel, and the overflow barrel ends up pushing it down into your overflow hopper, where it can go down into another system where you may store it in secondary storage. You can destroy it, you can use it in any type of other thing that you might want to do. The key thing here is that it will not back all the way up into your input, completely filling up your input hopper. That is when things break. Let's look at an alternative way to put items in the chests. The main goal here is to get the items to go across the top of all of these input hoppers. What if I just run a bunch of hoppers across the top here? This is the way that I've always done this in the past. This does work a lot of times, but if you are on realms or you have a lot of lag, this will break. Let me explain in detail. When one item is moving through the hoppers, it will go along and get pulled down into your input. Everything works fine. But what if two or more items have grouped together? When they move along, one of them will get pulled into the input, the other one is going to be pushed along, completely skipping the sorting. This happens a lot when there is lag or you have more than one supply line joining together. When that happens, a lot of your items that should have been sorted ended up in your overflow for unsorted items. Using the water flow technique that I showed in the construction does not have the problem of skipping items that should have been sorted. If a group of two or more items does show up, all of them will get pulled into the input chest all at once. Now you want to see something really silly? I have seen people try to put rail on top of these and run a rail car over it to distribute the items. That will not work. First, you need a lot of redstone to get this thing to keep moving, and even then it only drops one item. It will not drop multiple items in as it goes over each of these hoppers. Using a rail system is even worse than using a hopper line. Don't do it. Just stick with the water. It works. Now let's look at getting 3 more chests in this line. It is almost entirely the exact same process. There's one little trick to show. This is the sorter side of everything. I took the overflow hoppers away so you can see the arrangements of the hoppers going into the double chests on the back. All I am going to do in the next step is reverse it on these stacks of chests. The point here is that I'm going to have blue ice, just one block in that water feed line. That blue ice, it needs to have a gap in the sorter system. By reversing this, I end up having that gap in my entire sorting system. The rest of this is the same as before, really no change at all. You're going to level out this top by adding hoppers all the way across. Then you would continue with the rest of the build exactly as before. Now that that's done, you can see that there's a one wide gap here that is for that blue ice right there. That blue ice is going to help the items move along and keep their speed up as they go over the second set of 9 input hoppers. From here, I don't need to build the whole sorter to show how it would work. I just need to extend this water line out by 9 blocks so I can have 9 input hoppers. Then I can throw these hoppers in here. These would be the very top hopper in each of the little sorter slices. With that done, I need to extend the actual water line by putting some blocks or glass along the sides to keep the water from going everywhere. and it will end with an ice block as well. The placement of the signs is the same as before. There's going to be one right before the first hopper, just like we had over here. Then you're going to count in 4 and put up your next sign, and then put one directly after the last hopper. That will get the water flowing just right so that all the items clear all of the hoppers without getting hung up. Finally, you place water directly after each of the signs to complete your entire water flow. And that is how I get all 18 double chests stacked up with sorters and the water pulling everything through. This is the whole thing completed. You can see that the water comes in, flows across the first 9 gap, the next 9. Then I make a turn with an extra little water, and then it's the same pattern over again. 9, then that 1 gap, and then 9 more. Make a turn with a water source to push them around the turn, and keep going until you reach the very end of the water line. That very end is where you're going to have something to suck everything in. It doesn't matter what it is, you're not sorting it. So that's called the unsorted items. They're going to go into a stack there at the very end. And how I handled it here is very simple. I did not put a redstone torch on this last block, so that hopper never gets locked and everything just goes straight through. Before I finish here, let's take one more look at the overflow. You can see that I have all the overflow all coming together and merging together and going into a dropper right here. This dropper has that same mechanism to tell if something is in it, and if so, it will shoot the item out and it shoots it right into some lava. So if I end up with, say, too many cobblestone, it's going to go in here and it's going to get shot down into the lava and destroyed rather than backing up my entire system. Here I am back in Hedgehog Hollow inside my base's storage room. It's a little bit bigger than the storage room that I just got through showing you, but everything is still the same concept. If we come back here behind the chests, you'll be able to see that it is the same slice over and over again. You'll recognize those target blocks, you'll recognize the redstone torches, you'll recognize the overflow. Let's go down below here and I can show you exactly how I handled all of the overflow. You can see how this line of hoppers goes down through the floor, down below and into my overflow system. This particular line wraps around to the disposal service. Now if I go back over here to this side, you'll be able to see that I have 4 rows of hoppers. The upper line, middle line, second from bottom, and the very bottom. The upper line is the feed for this array of furnaces, so anything that needs to be smelted can go through there. The second line down, I have to come around the back so you can really see it. That is the fuel for all of the furnaces. So anything that can be used as fuel comes through here and goes in to feed the furnace array. The third line isn't as exciting. If you look down here, all I do is bone meal anything that comes in the third line. And then the bottom line comes over here into this dropper where it gets automatically ejected into some lava to destroy it. So those are the 4 things that I can do. I can either feed it into a furnace, make it fuel for a furnace, bone meal it, or destroy it through these lines that run under all of my sorting chests. And I'm sure you noticed that I have the exact same bubble column right here. This sends everything up to be sorted. There is a line of hoppers down here that feeds it, and this line of hoppers takes input from the bone mealer here, from all this furnace array, and from an input that's way over on the other side that you can only see from above. But that's not all. I don't want to come up here while I'm mining down below in order to put stuff in. So if I head down into my mining area, you can see that there's another input into the bubble column right over here. So as I mine all this cobblestone and stuff, I can pop it in, it goes up to my sorter. And over here in this little mine, anything that goes in can go up to the sorter. I can even go down into the deep slate and you'll see I have yet another input into the sorter. So as I'm mining deep slate, I don't have to go back up. I can just pop it into a barrel here and everything gets sorted. And that is my complete sorting system. You can now build one exactly like this if you want. but I don't expect it to be exactly the same. There was a lot of things you could do to customize yours, and most likely make yours better than mine. Until the next video, I have plenty here to work on with everyone at Hedgehog Hollow. If you have any improvements for the sorter that I made here, please leave comments below. And if there's something else you want me to make a video about, leave a comment about that as well. I always enjoy learning new things and teaching new things. And from Hedgehog Hollow, goodbye.